Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for this Ignite Leadership series. I'm really excited to be bringing you some fabulous leaders. We're going to have candid conversations. We're going to learn from their experience and hopefully get some really valuable morsels out of this series. So the reason why I've put this together is I have been in the industry for 20 years. I've been working with fabulous people. I've met some extraordinary leaders. I've helped build some extraordinary teams, and I really wanted to bring some of the knowledge and experience that I have come across to as many people as possible. So I've chosen LinkedIn Live to do this. I hope this forum works for everybody, and I will be here at 11:30 every Thursday until I run out of leaders to talk to, and I hope it's helpful for you. I've just put together this very short video to launch us each week so that people can see us go live, they can jump on board, and they know we're here. So bear with me, we will be going live at 11:30 as promised. So why is this important? This is important because it's to be good at what you do. It's really important to model good people. So if you want to be the best, model the best. And I have worked with so many wonderful leaders and helped them build teams. I've seen some really fabulous leadership styles. I've seen people who've developed over time as leaders, and the fastest way to do that is to, yes, there's theory, but let's move away from theory a little bit and let's look at what really happens in these roles with these people, and let's learn from the mistakes that some of the leaders have made. So I suppose I'm bringing mentors to the table through the experience that I have and the people who I have met over the years. So hopefully it's inspiring to you. Hopefully it's a place where you will gain some valuable information. Even if you pick up one thing from the conversation we're having each week, then that will be enough for me to feel as if I've brought you value. So I really do hope that you receive value from this. What I would love from you is if you can let us know you're here. Obviously we're live on LinkedIn. We would love interaction from you to know that you're here, you're listening. Let us know if there's something that comes up for you that resonates with you, something that you want to ask. The aim will be 20 minutes of conversation and then 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A, depending on how we end up. So hopefully that works for you all. As I say, please interact with us, engage. And if you would like a transcript of this session, I'm going to share transcripts with people who come to me and ask for them, and I will also put together a document which will be all of the key takeouts, the key learnings that we've received from each session. So I'll also be able to share that with you if you pop a comment in at the end of the conversation. So really excited to be here once again. Let's get on with it. I will see you on the other side. Good morning. Welcome everybody on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are live on Facebook today as well. So if you're on Facebook, welcome to you too. And this morning we are here to speak with Karl Sice. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Malcolm. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Nelson from Brazil. It's very exciting to have people on from all over the place. So I'm just going to give you a quick intro on Karl, who is sitting here waiting patiently for me to get on with it. So Karl's a country business leader at the moment for ANZ at Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise. They're a multinational network solutions corporation. He's had 30 years experience in leadership and business development and IT and financial services, with roles with companies like Dell, Sun Microsystems, Staples, Gartner and American Express. So a real plethora of sort of spaces and industries. Karl's had some fantastic accolades over the years. He's was a 2017 member of the ARN Hall of Fame, which is phenomenal. And he judged and has done some judging over the years for the ARN Women in ICT Awards, which is a fabulous, really exciting set of awards. I love that every year. And the Australian Institute of Management Manager of the Year finalist in 2015. And has had Best Partner Performance Initiative Award for ARN as well. So Karl's also a fellow at the Institute of Managers and Leaders, an active participant in the Member Exchange Mentoring Program, and a guest lecturer in the MBA programs at Macquarie University and the University of Technology. And he mentors postgraduate students. So he's also involved in charities, so working with Vinnie's Australia, and he shares advice with them and is actively involved in fundraising campaigns as well. So Karl is not busy at all. He's obviously doesn't get up to much. So yeah, Karl, really happy to have you here. I really appreciate you making the time for us. What a fantastic history, and hopefully some wonderful wisdom you can bring to us today.
Thanks for having me, Rebecca. Great to be here.
Yeah, no worries. That was a big introduction. So moving into my questions, we'll get straight into it. I always love to know, what was it that brought you into leadership in the first place? Did you find leadership, or did leadership find you?
Yeah, great question, Rebecca. You know, my career started in business development. I was involved in some engagements in the IT industry, working in, when IT in the 90s, many will remember that was kind of the genesis of our industry. And I was involved in business development roles. And frankly, the organisations I worked for back then had a bunch of opportunities. And I felt like there was an opportunity for me to do my role, but also to take the opportunity to step up. So it was great to actually take the opportunity proactively to let my then bosses know that I felt that there were some things that they could do better. And eventually, I suppose I was annoying enough for them to say, actually, why don't you come to one of our leadership meetings, which I accepted and I embraced. That was a weekend investment, but it turned out to be one of the, I think, cleverest moves I've made, because I was able to bring some ideas, thoughts, and ways in which we could do things differently. And eventually they invited me to assume my first leadership role at that organisation. So things sort of progressed from there, but it was a great opportunity to see how things could improve and then to take action behind that opportunity.
Yeah. I love that we always manage, or we seem to know how to do things better when we're not in that role. When you stepped into that role, did you realise it might be a little bit harder than it looked?
There's no question about it, Rebecca. I know that the world has become more professional in these times. A lot of people go through the right study streams and prepare, but ultimately no one quite prepares you for people management. Everyone talks about people management as being a real test for life, and I'd have to agree with that. Even at this stage of my career, I find there's some new challenges in that regard, and often there just isn't the precedent or insights and you have to think on your feet and be agile, but all the while maintain the disposition that allows the right level. There goes my lights. Excuse me.
You've gone dark.
Sorry about that. That's the Lighting 101 happening live in front of you. Sorry about that. Leadership requires agility, and it requires effective dealing with ambiguity. So working with that in the context of supporting people, but there's no textbook for that. And you ask about difficulties. I think everyone can learn the basics of business leadership, business management, but when it comes to leadership, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so did you have some good mentors when you made the transition, and how open were you to taking on board what they were telling you?
Great question. One that comes to mind, Rebecca, and it's someone that many people, I know there's a bunch of people from industry on this meeting today, but there's a bunch of people in the industry who I'm extremely grateful to. One that comes straight to mind directly to your question is actually Phil Cameron. Phil Cameron now runs Westcon in Australia, but back in the early days, Phil was someone who pulled me up quite early in my career and said, Karl, I appreciate your enthusiasm. I appreciate your hunger for success. But he gave me some advice about how to, I suppose, get more bears with honey, work in a more eloquent way, and be able to make sure I brought people along for the journey. He said, if you've got any chance of being a successful leader, you can't do it unless you bring people for the journey. And look, that was a very timely lesson for me, Rebecca, because it could have well cost me. It could have ended up being a career derailing point, allowing that passion, allowing that desire to overtake the real need to keep everyone along. So I'm always grateful to Phil. The other example I'd like to share, if I may, is that in the States, one of the greatest examples I've had is when I went through a process when I was working for Dell in North America. I was actually interviewed for quite a big role over there, and I actually was the runner-up for that role. I was not successful. What was amazing about that opportunity is I got access to a whole lot of new people, and through those interactions, I was able to pick off a couple of key people who became my mentors, and then later in my career were able to coach me on, these are the things you need to be thinking about, these are the areas you need to double down on, these are the areas you are doing well, let's see you doing even more of those. So taking those opportunities. But I think you nailed it with what you said before. You have to be open, you have to be receiving of those opportunities and realize that you can't just sit there going, okay, it's such and such a time, I'm going to look for that person. You've got to be on the watch out all the time, because you just never know where those opportunities can present in life. And when they do, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. And, you know, taking lessons out of things that don't go right is just as important, I think, as taking lessons out of things that do go right. And I think, to be honest, that's something that differentiates good from great as well in terms of leadership and even, you know, self-leadership. So that's, fantastic example. Thank you.
Brilliant.
And so we spoke a few days ago, and we sort of drilled into the awareness element. When you're looking for people to join your teams, how important is awareness? How important is sort of EQ, for want of a better description?
Yeah, look, it's incredibly important. I know in my own journey, Rebecca, one of the coaching pieces that came to me constantly, and I've done a lot of work on it, but it still remains an opportunity today, is that people use the competency to describe me. Karl has strong command skills. Now, that's a gift as well as a challenge. It's a gift because it allows me to feel comfortable in certain interactions and be able to speak and be able to communicate needs and communicate objectives. But the weakness is, because I'm a big guy, I'm a large physical guy, I've got a big presence, I've got potentially a deep voice, I can come across as intimidating in the wrong audience. That's never a helpful trait. I'm very conscious that certain people I interact with sometimes will look at me, and it's not that I intend to set them off course. That's not my intention at all. The opportunity is for me to connect with as many people as I can, but I've really had to temper my style and work on that and really shape who I am. I think when it comes to hiring people, again, it's incredibly important. In 2020, at least in my experience, any organisation, small or large, I'm only part of a small team in a vendor environment now in Australia. We've got less than 30 people in our team. It would be impossible if I had a team of sole campaigners who are going after their own requirements and not collaborating effectively and not winning the right way, to borrow an old saying. So I'm very conscious when we're recruiting that, yes, we absolutely want to bring in people with different skills and different experiences, but we want to do it in a way that allows those people to be themselves, but be themselves in a team environment, be most effective when they're working through and with others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm reading a book at the moment by a guy called Keith Ferrazzi. I don't know if you've heard of him. He runs a global consulting business, really impressive. I think he was the youngest head of marketing in a Fortune 100 company ever at one point. And he talks about a thing called co-elevation. And so that is about bringing having your people behave as leaders, whether they're in leadership roles or not, and look at the entire business as a team and how can they connect from a team perspective, which I think is, it's something that I think underlying we've kind of always known, but it's not something that companies have necessarily proactively worked on. And so I'm loving the learnings from that. So very relevant what you're saying there.
If I can share with you, Rebecca, one of the greatest things I think leaders do and have the possibility of doing is leaving behind something special in terms of a culture. And it's not about the results, it's about the environment and the shaping of that environment that they've been successful in doing. There's nothing more valuable than having an environment that's been shaped over a period of time. And because of good leadership, it's actually got sustainable, scalable opportunity that can go on for many years. Many people forget that the leader that used to come in the room banging the table and shouting and driving the right sales management results. That went out 20 years ago. The leader of 2020 needs to be engaging, needs to be shaping, needs to be leading through others. And I strongly agree with your previous point. Those examples very much resonate for me, and I think are applicable in this environment.
Yeah, no, that's, and I know that's something we touched on the other day as well. Another probably big rabbit hole we could go all the way down into. I love your concept of almost missing opportunity by not hiring people for the right reasons. And you talked about, when we spoke last time, about the diversity element of that as well. So how important it was to be open to building diverse teams. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, look, at many organisations, particularly larger ones, I think got caught up. This is a few years ago now. Got caught up in the term diversity, and there was talk at the time of creating targets and all sorts of different ways. And I felt some of that was a little bit unnatural, if I can speak openly. I think what needs to be embraced by the modern leader is the opportunity that comes from bringing many people, from many different backgrounds with different skills and experiences, and not be threatened by contrarian views and the possibility of different. One of the things, again, a lot of people who know me and who've watched me over a number of roles that I've taken have noticed that I've never tried to, I didn't turn up to Alcatel, clear the bench and start again with the people I had in the last team or the team before that. And I think, unfortunately, there's still a little bit of that going on in the industry. I don't know that it's a great strategy. I think what needs to happen is people need to embrace new and different, and take the opportunity to bring people with not only the industry experiences that are different, but also their attitudes and their approaches. And I've had, again, the only reason I've been successful, Rebecca, is because of the people I've been the teams I've been able to be a part of. And that is never about what I do. It's always about what the team does. And that can, again, only happen if people feel like they're part of a true multicolored jigsaw, if I can use that analogy.
Yeah. Out of interest, so that's I think there's so many different versions of building culture and building team, and I've always said that when people come to me and ask me about the culture of a business, I always ask them who the leader is they're going to be working for. So, because I do think that whilst you're not, doing the thing where you're bringing your whole team with you, you still bring your ethos, you still bring your style and how you lead. And I think that people will join great cultures. They will also leave bad leaders. So, out of interest, when you come into a team, what are some of the key things that you do to set up the type of culture and sort of get people on your journey in that sense?
I think it's really important. It's a great question. I think it's really important to give people a safe environment. So there's nothing worse, and again, as a new leader, to come into a team and to impose previous styles or approaches or systems that might operate the business a particular way, or might operate the culture a particular way, and to take enough time. I know when I came into this role, it took me well more than 6 months to not only understand the nuances of the organisation, but more importantly, the nuances of the people. And you can only do that if you give people a safe environment in which to operate, and that includes making mistakes. Too often we get caught up in getting it right all the time. I'm a big believer, as long as it's not unethical, as long as it's not breaking the rules, it's okay to fall over. But it's even more okay for the leader to put down their hand and go, well done. What do we learn? We're learning together. Give people that environment where they feel, Karl's got my back, Karl's going to continue to advocate on my behalf, and I'm part of a group. And to your previous comment, Rebecca, I'm a strong believer that I still believe this is relevant today as it was many years ago. People typically don't leave companies, they leave managers. And although that doesn't always work out, some people go for career reasons and other reasons. More often than not, when you do exit interviews and you look at what's going on in the background, people have often, voted with their feet and have seen the opportunity. How do you call it? It gets dimmer in certain environments, and that's driving them to basically make change. That's obviously a highly unattractive trait for any leader, and it's something that the engagement piece is something I'm very, very conscious of, because without that, I've got no team. I've got no team. Yeah. It's that simple.
Yeah, right. And so interesting you say that right now in this environment we're in, and well, I know Sydney's not so much in this environment, but we're kind of coming out the other end a little bit. But we're all, a lot of us are still working from home, right? And so, I think a lot of leaders felt the need to have to know everything and be, and I know people look to their leaders for certainty, but having that ability to go, you know what, I've never done this before, and this is, we're in this kind of together, but I've got your back. I think, that's really important. And, Brene Brown and all those people, they talk about vulnerability. And I think a lot of people in leadership shy away from that word. Whereas what you're talking about here is kind of vulnerability, and it is being, and when people see that you're all in it together, they're much more comfortable in speaking their truth.
Rebecca, you're right on point. The V word, vulnerability, is so huge. I know I had a personal experience where last week I was involved in a global development program with the company, and one of the things they did leading up to that program was they did a psych test on me, which always scares me because I wonder what they're looking for, but nevertheless, it came out okay. But, the first thing I did when I came back to the team is I said, I'm going to share that information with you. I haven't been asked to do that. I wanted to do that because I want you to see, warts and all, the kind of things and the kind of challenges that I'm working on myself and the areas that I'm looking to improve, so that you can feel safe and you can feel like you can step up and take the inertia that we're creating together through this and make yourself better. And I think people love that. People love, you made the point very well. People love working for people who are authentic, who are doing what they're doing for the right reasons and want to make a real difference. And if as a leader you're showing those traits, you can make a huge difference, and you can continue to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take a breather for a second and just look over at these comments, because there seems to be a lot of people online. So I'm just seeing who have we got. Have we got any questions yet? Good morning, Wendy. Who else have I got? Wendy Hampson's here as well. Mark, Dale, hi. So please do, if you've got any questions for Karl, throw them into the comments here. Here we go. I've got a question from Amit. Thanks, Amit. And thanks for joining us again, by the way. Karl, how did you go about realigning the way you lead your team during COVID? And has it changed you in a personal manner?
Wow, great question. Thank you for the question. That's a really good question. I hope I can give it the value in my response. But COVID has challenged all of us, and there's no doubt that it's challenged me personally. I know in the ALE world globally, I hate to start with a dark data point, but we've had 33 people directly affected through the pandemic. So the health issue first and foremost is the most important thing that I've prioritised as a leader. I know when we had a more unknowns than we had knowns, the one thing I did do, and I'm not saying I have all the answers because I don't, but we arranged regular communiques with the team. We connected daily, and there goes my light again. Sorry about that. Eco light's being a little ambitious here. I apologise. We had regular communication where we got together daily, but we shared our fears, we shared our anxieties, we shared our challenges, and we made sure, again, that we were safe together. We also made sure, I know many organisations have done an absolutely remarkable job of pivoting out and working wherever. We've always been relatively flexible as an organisation. Although we have a physical office in Sydney, we've always used an approach to business. The business is not a place you are, it's an activity. And during COVID season, I think it's never been more important to make sure people understand no one's sitting here. I mean, again, this isn't an attitude that's relevant in 2020, but we're not sitting here with a watch looking at where people are. And then finally, it's all about making sure people know that they've got resources and they've got support to do their role more so than ever time before. So once again, it's about probably over-communicating, over-collaborating. For me personally, it's been uniquely challenging that we've seen a couple of our key markets go into hibernation. That's quite scary. I know it's quite confronting as a leader when you've been operating a business a particular way, and then suddenly two of those, just like my eco light went out a couple of times, you've actually had a light go out in your business. To be able to pivot out to be able to pivot out as a challenge, no matter how experienced and how capable you are. And that's also been one of the challenges that we've had to work through as well. What's been great is that our organisation has been very supportive as well, and the resources of and I'm involved obviously in a bunch of global calls. It's been very hard to listen and I feel for my colleagues in other parts of the world like Europe, and I know my colleagues in North America also have been seriously challenged, but we are holding hands, we are going through this, and we will get to the other side.
Yeah, brilliant. Fabulous. Thank you for answering that. Hopefully that's given you some good insight, Amit. And I've got more questions coming through. So we've opened the floodgates here. So are you happy to carry on with those?
100%, Rebecca. Please.
Wonderful. So Wendy Hampson asks, what's your advice in dealing with a toxic employee when they're hitting their KPIs but really bringing the team down? It's hard to exit these types of individuals, yet their impact spreads like a disease.
Wow, what a great question, Wendy. Thank you very much for asking. Look, I've certainly had plenty of experiences where I've seen people who've performed, or at least let me rephrase and say they thought they were performing. I think performance comes in two pieces. It comes in an objective piece, which is maybe about the results and about the activities, and it comes in the behaviours. And I think what's incredibly important as a leader is, particularly in a culture which you're looking to drive in the kind of way in which I've explained, you need to have both. You need to have performance and KPIs, but you also need to have the right behaviours. I know in past organisations, we've not hesitated, even on occasion, unfortunately, having to resort to, more formal coaching to people who aren't going to modify or accommodate others and work with and through others. And we've had to manage that. It's an incredibly, incredibly challenging thing as a leader to do, because, of course, if you're counting on certain results, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh my gosh, what's the material impact on this? But the organisation and the rest of the team that you're leading have so much respect and so much appreciation for your courage to go through that fire, that the actual upside is always well worth. It's well worth the pain. So I know I have personally experienced this a number of times in my career. I can think of a number of examples where I've worked with and alongside people who kind of have got egos bigger than the world itself, and they've applied those egos in a way that's been highly disruptive to others, and it has not allowed us to be successful as a we. It's been very much an I. I think as a leader, you need to make a decision. Can this person make changes? Can this person embrace some changes to make themselves better? They're the questions you need to ask. And if they can't get there, then there's probably a bigger question that needs to be asked for the benefit of the team.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose if that's eroding culture, then it's potentially eroding other people achieving KPIs as well. So really
absolutely. It's a demotivating factor across the board, Rebecca. It affects everyone. It has to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that question, Wendy. And fantastic answer, Karl. Thank you. Now, Tony has asked a question. Hi, Tony. Tony Haywood, that is. You know Tony, I think. How do you go about ensuring that organisational or management pressure from above is diffused and not negatively impacting individuals within your team?
Some people, great question, Tony. Thank you for asking, and great to have you on the meeting here. I think often particularly in multinational organisations, and I've worked in my career mostly with multinationals, that's neither good or bad, it's just what I've done. Every multinational I've worked for, including the one I'm at now, has messages coming down all the time. And the challenge is often those messages don't have the context, the understanding, and the experiences of the local team and the local market. I think for the leader at all times needs to remain authentic in their communication, but it's really, really important. I feel an innate responsibility to protect my team a little bit from some of the irrelevant messages. And it's not about lying to the team, but it's about making sure they understand the pieces that matter. And then I've got a situation live right now where I'm pulling the team together tomorrow morning for a global message. It happens to be a positive one, but there still will be a degree of interpretation to allow the team to understand, hey guys, I understand all of this doesn't apply, but go with me. Let me explain what the business is trying to achieve. I've actually done some work before coming to you today, and here's what I think it looks like. If people understand that you're committed to translate and be able to help them to digest the messages because you've taken that extra time. I think that's incredibly helpful, and people feel more willing and tend to embrace those opportunities or those conversations more so. Does that make sense, Rebecca?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it does, and yeah, I'm sure to Tony too. It's I think, there's a big difference between just delivering a message and delivering a message that is for your team. And leaders should know their team better than anyone. And I
Absolutely.
love that you're kind of there. You have a responsibility to kind of protect them or sort of soften the blow, or and make it something that's going to work for them ultimately, even if it's not immediate. So that's really cool. We've still got questions here, so I'm going to jump straight back into this. We're at 11:57. So, and I've got my one last question that I always like to ask. But Mike has asked, what do you see happening in the IT sales roles now moving forward through this COVID time? As a job seeker, it seems different to me at the moment than it used to be. Yeah.
What a great question, Mike. Thank you very much for the question. I think it's very timely and very relevant in today's market as well. I think I'm going to borrow a license from someone else I heard yesterday in the tech industry. I think the tech industry still is in front of many of the changes that are required today and will be required tomorrow. So I think if there's any industry I'd love to still be a part of, it's the tech industry. I still think there's going to be plenty of opportunity, albeit those changes will adjust and will need to make different types of solutions and different kind of outcomes. The big thing I'm seeing in the market today that we've been talking about for, you don't want to know how many years, but I'm actually seeing it right now, high pressure, it's very much front of stage, is people are now talking, no longer accepting a product or a solution, even a solution-based conversation. Today's conversation, every single one, is about a business process improvement, about a cost improvement, or a tool or a system improvement. Businesses, or in the case of public sector, they're looking to serve their citizens more effectively or improve a clinical health outcome. I mean, even in some of the most how would you say it, vanilla flavored environments, you're seeing people completely change and accommodate that factor in the market. And what's happening is people are under more pressure to create value. And I think as anyone who's in any sort of customer facing role needs to be constantly thinking about the value they're creating. And I know that's been a message that's been evergreen, but in 2020, I've never seen it more important. I came from a meeting this morning, and I would say 75 to 80% of that meeting was kind of the style that I'm defining. And it has to be that way with everyone now. The days of being able to sit behind your products or sit behind your solutions and kind of hope that you're going to make your units and revenue and margin targets, I think those days are very much gone. And if there's one thing good about COVID season, maybe this is it. Maybe it's giving us a lift in our professionalism, which is good, which is helpful.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's so many new elements, I think, that are coming in as well at the moment. We don't have time to go into them right now, but maybe that's another. I'm thinking, well, that's a good conversation, good live subject. So maybe I'll come back on that one. So thank you so much for that question. I've lost who even asked the question. It was Mike. I'm going to have a think about that, Mike, because I think that could be something worth exploring further. Bruce has said, how can we get people to do more in the current pandemic, assuming it's not an issue of skill sets? How can we get people to do more in the current pandemic? I'm not sure if I understand the question.
I think we're being asked to do more, aren't we, Rebecca? I think people are being asked. Sadly, that's the reality of today's environment. I think it's also about making sure we're kind to ourselves. If I'm allowed to give a slightly different twist to the message, I think the other very concerning, we haven't touched on this so far, people are talking about COVID season. I have 2 healthcare workers at home and I have a police officer who's my son. So I'm very conscious of the front line and how many mental health issues are already presenting today. I think as a community, we need to be very kind to each other. And I know that sounds soft and I don't mean to be fluffy about my answer, but I think we really do need to look out for each other and understand that if people need to have a break, particularly as a leader, if you can give people opportunities to take the appropriate time to heal themselves, to heal their family, to heal each other, it's actually not it's not an afterthought. It's something that's really, really important, and it's going to ultimately benefit the community, because I think we've got a bigger black swan floating around this pond right now. That one scares me more than most others.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that was a really, really great answer. Thank you. And yeah, I've got no words. I just, at the moment, I think it's so important that we show care in our community and also in our businesses and our families and everything else. So yeah, another hopefully valuable, to an extent, valuable thing that will come out of this is that new level of connection amongst humans as well. So yeah, that's big.
Agreed.
Thank you. I'm looking here. We've got more questions. Simon, speaking of egos, what do you see the future of sellers post-COVID, especially around the psychology aspect? That is a huge question. We've kind of ticked over the 12 o'clock, and I feel terrible for cutting it off very, very quickly. What do you think on that front? We've kind of covered some of it, I think.
So just could you repeat the question? It's about the psychology.
What do you see in the future for sellers post-COVID, especially around the psychology aspect?
I've kind of touched on that in the previous answer around being more professional and more business capable. I think people are looking for differentiation and value more than at any time in the history, and our ability to respond to that is never been more important. I kind of think that's probably the big takeaway that I've got at the moment, Rebecca.
Yeah. And I think customers, on the connection front, customers want to be connected with too, and they want to, and, from a psychological perspective, customers want to feel as if, the conversation is bigger than just product. And so I think that's something that hopefully people will take away from this as well. So thank you so much. One last question. Sorry for anyone who's got to go. I completely get it. But my last question, as I always love to ask, is if you could only share one thing, Karl, and nothing else with leaders up and coming and entrenched, what would you give them? One piece of wisdom, one piece of advice.
So my professional advice to one thing, Rebecca, very hard for me to stay on one, but I will, is take calculated risks. One of the greatest things that I've enjoyed about not only my career but seeing the career of others is because I actually took a risk with most of the moves I made. I know when I was given this opportunity, it was unexpected. I wasn't on the market. It didn't happen because my resume was on any of the social tools. It was because of my connecting with others and actually being active and driving a bunch of areas of life that ultimately drove the ecosystem towards me. I'm a huge believer in, and again, I'm not suggesting that any one type of work is the right answer, but what I've loved about my career is the variety of experience. I've not operated in one part of tech. I've operated pretty much most areas, and that's been fantastic because it's given me a level of understanding and relatability, I hope, that actually is actually increasing the value of the interactions and ultimately the enjoyment I'm deriving from the career I've had and helping others to enjoy theirs as well. So take more risks.
Take more risks. Okay. More calculated risks. That was the word.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed the conversation. It's gone on sort of all sorts of different, the lights, there's a bit of comedic element there as well with the light. Next week, everybody, we have the amazing Oscar Trimboli on. He talks about the art of deep listening and has had a phenomenal career as a leader in companies such as Microsoft. So I'd love you to join us next week for 11:30 for Oscar Trimboli. And if you would like the transcript, please reach out and let me know. And once again, thank you so much, Karl. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you on behalf of everybody who's jumped on. So have a great day. I'm going to jump to the video now for just the end piece. So, all right, everyone. Thanks again. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful you managed to take time out to spend with us. I hope you got some value from the conversation. And just a reminder, I will be here every Thursday at 11:30 talking to another fabulous leader and bringing you more great morsels and value and mentoring. So please do join me. And if there's anything you would like to talk about when it comes to attracting, developing, retaining high-performing teams, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation. If you would like a transcript of the session, please remember to leave me a message or get in touch, and I'll also produce a document which will have the key takeouts from today's session, so I can share that with you too. All right, thanks again. Have a fabulous day. I will see you next time.